last week we did talk a little bit about the book of James, and I brought my Bible here, so give me 1 second. We're going to be in James 1, and last week we started off in verse 1, so go ahead and open up your Bible, because I know everybody now has one, which is awesome, so go ahead and open that up. And I'm actually going to... page 1043. Thank you. Give it up for the production team. Man, that was incredible. That was simply incredible. 1043. If you're using the Bibles that we have. If not, James is in the New Testament very towards the end. It's a short letter. So I'm going to start in chapter 1, verse 2. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, not just like small trials, not just the occasional trial, but many trials. Real quick show of hands, who praises God when you go through a trial? Who says, oh, thank you so much. I love trials. I love persecution. I love when people start talking bad on me. I love when people tell me I can't do it. I love it when the weight of the world feels like it's crushing me. Can I get an amen? Yeah, who actually says that? Yeah, okay, all right, that's good. We're on the truth. We're on the truth. As I was looking at this and I was thinking about, this was really where Pastor James was with the scriptures last week. It made me think sports. You know, I always go back to the two things that I love. I love God. Three things. I love God, I love my family, and I love sports. And just last night, I was watching a football game that a good buddy of mine, it's his team. His team is Washington, if anybody is a Washington fan or caught that game last night. And he's texting me everything that's happening. They score a touchdown, and he's like, oh, man, did you see that? It was incredible. And you know, when they didn't score a touchdown, and he would text me some things I'm not going to repeat today, but it got me thinking, what's the joy of football? Is it getting hit really hard? No. Is it getting really close to the Super Bowl and then losing and having to go home with nothing? No. The joy is in the victory, right? The whole point of the game is to win it. I mean, we can say a whole bunch of cliche things like, oh, man, I just do it for the love of the game. I just love playing. No, you want to win. You want to win or you wouldn't be there. You want to win or you wouldn't last in the league, right? So the joy comes from the victory. Let me say that one more time so you can write it down. The joy comes in the victory. But you don't have victory without the practice. You don't win on Sunday unless you have practice Monday through Friday. You don't execute the play and get the touchdown unless you did it 6,000 times that Monday afternoon and your coach wouldn't let you leave until you got it right. You don't get on the field to run down and call the plays unless you know the playbook. See, the joy comes from the victory, but the victory comes picking up in verse 3 because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. See, perseverance gets the victory. And joy comes from that victory. So, I thought, you know, I don't praise God always. I'm just going to be honest with you. When I feel like the weight of the world is pushing down on me. When I know I'm going through a test. But that's because often I don't really look at a test the way that God looks at a test. I don't look at a trial in the way that God designed the trial for me to go through. Or maybe for some of you, you're like me and you just don't really understand the difference between a trial or a test. You know, a trial is often trying to teach us something. A trial is kind of an avenue to learn, and sometimes we bring those on ourselves. Right? Again, this is a little bit of a vulnerable story for me, but it's one that I know, and I know it's a trial that I went through, and I know it was a trial that I brought on myself. But it was a trial that I had to go through nonetheless. And many years ago, when I was in my 20s, so many years ago. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to say how many, but quite a bit of years ago, before I was a pastor, friend texted me and he was like, "Hey man, we need to hang out tonight." And I'm like, "Okay, like what do you want to do? You want to play some video games? Because I like video games. Do you want to go eat some pizza?" And he was like, "No, I was thinking we go to the bar." So I was like, "Okay, yeah, I'm old enough." I was in my early 20s, so that's not the illegal part of the story. Don't worry, I was old enough. So I go to the bar, and he buys the first round, and one round leads to another. Probably drank a little too much. Definitely drank a little too much if you've ever been there. And that's not necessarily the bad part of the story either. I then thought it would be a good idea to put the key in the ignition, turn the ignition, put the car into drive. And that night, I decided it would be a good idea to go ahead and drive my car home. Although I didn't get home. On the way home, I ended up crashing my car in a very bad accident. And what came after that was a slew of trials. I had no car. I had no way to get to work. I had court fees. I had to get a lawyer. I had lawyer fees. All of a sudden, the pressure of the world started weighing down on my shoulders. I'm supposed to be a man. I was legally a man. I just wasn't acting like one. But I was supposed to be a man. I was supposed to be a provider. I'm supposed to be all of these things. This was one of the worst trials that I ever had in my life. And I still remember it like it was yesterday. I couldn't cheat to get past this. I couldn't just fast forward to get past this trial. I had to live it out. I now had a probation officer that I had to check in with every single day of my life. What I'm trying to say is this trial was real, but this trial wasn't from God. This trial was from me. But in that moment, I do believe that God was willing to use that trial to better my life. Some trials, we do it to ourselves, church. And those are the types of trials I would highly recommend you avoid. But some trials, God designs them in your life to grow you, to stretch you, to build your faith. When God called me to be a pastor, I do believe he put me through a trial. I had a very good job. I had a very cush life, if I'm being honest. I had a beautiful house, a nice garage, lived in a gated community. It was fantastic. And then God says, "You're going to be a pastor." And I said, "Yeah, I'll do that in my spare time. I'll go to work. I'll make all my money. I had this nice house. I have a fenced-in backyard. It's great." And then God said, okay. I called you to be a pastor. Let's put it. Let's put it to the test. Let's give you a trial." And really quickly, I had no job. We moved to Louisiana from Pennsylvania. God put us away from all of my relatives, all of my friends, made me have to leave that job. I had to figure out how to pay my bills. I had to figure out how to put food in my daughter's mouth, all without a job. I had to grow a faith that didn't question the process. I had to grow a faith that says, "God, only you can do this," because these numbers, they're not mathing. God, these numbers, my checking account, the total at the register, it's not equaling, God. I have to trust you because all glory has to be yours at the end of this. That trial, I do believe, was from God. And on the other end of it, I think I'm doing pretty good now. I'm getting to stand up in front of you guys. I'm living my dream job. I'm working with just an amazing staff around me. Yeah, absolutely. And I wrote this little note. I went from asking God how I'm going to put food in my daughter's mouth to last night my daughter just asked, "Daddy, can we go jogging? But can we listen to one of those podcasts where they just read the Bible to you?" And that's because of God. You don't get a situation like that unless you persevere through the trial and you give glory to God on the other side. That's what a trial is. That's what a trial is designed to do. And a test is just a check on learning. I hated tests in school. If you're a school teacher, I probably talked bad about you behind your back. I hated tests, and the only reason I had a test in school is my teacher was a jerk. My teacher wanted to make I see teachers over there. Not you. You're great. You're great. But my teacher wasn't. Teachers wanted me to live a miserable life, so they just gave me tests all the time. And now as a parent, I of course get it. I talk about my daughter, talk about my family a lot. My daughter she's doing division in math now. So if you have a kid who's going through math, I will also pray with you. Just get with me after. So she's getting in division in math, and she's at this point she's just not getting it. Absolutely not getting it. And my brain works completely different because the math that I did financial math. So, I'm thinking like count back the money, it cost $13, you gave me a 20, I'm going to count 2 more, now we're at 15, here's a 5, there's your 20, we're good to go. And she's not laying that math on me at all. And anyway, I'm correcting her homework, and this problem is just wrong. And I look at her and I'm like, no, sweetie, this one's wrong. And she goes, why? I have no idea how her teacher taught her to do this math. If you're with me. So I look at and I'm like, I have no idea. But I'm going to tell you why I know it's wrong. And I said, take your solution, times it by this number, and does it equal that? And she goes, well, that's not division, that's multiplication. And I'm like, I know, just do it. Take the solution, multiply it by this number, and does it equal that number? And she's like, okay, and she does it, and she's like, no. I'm like, that's how I know it's wrong. And she said, so division is just like multiplication, but backwards? And I said, yeah. She goes, so I had to learn multiplication to be able to do division. And I said, yeah. She's like, well, I'm really good at multiplication. I passed the test, so I can just use multiplication to do this division. And I said, yes, that's right. So you went through the trial of multiplication. You were faced with the test to prove your learning. And now future trials get easier. And I was way more excited than she was, and way more excited than you guys are. But you'll get it when you go through math. But she finally clicked in her head. A test isn't because teachers want to make your life miserable, right? Right, she agreed. It is to make you more mature. See, the trial is to give you the knowledge. The test is to make sure that you can use it. Trials get easier when you get tested. A test is making sure that you know your stuff. And a temptation, well, guys, that one's just easy. That one's easy. That's not from God, okay? Temptation's going to make you sin, all right? So what are you feeling tempted to do? Does the Bible say not to do it? That's a temptation. That one seems easy. A temptation will make you do things that the Bible's already told you not to. A temptation will make you go down to the bar and have way too many drinks. A temptation will make you put the key in the ignition. A temptation says, I'm going to create all of these other reasons as to why I should do what I already know is wrong. A temptation says, no, I promised my wife I would get home. I'm doing the mature thing because I'm a man. No, you're breaking the law, and that's wrong. The law's already told me not to do it. That's what the temptation says. So, really quick, some of you may have gotten an envelope this morning. Anybody get one of these? Hold it up if you got it. Hold it up if you got it. Okay, a few of us should. If you did get it, it was in your bulletin. What's it say on it? Okay, who opened it? Guys, who opened it? Okay, we got a few. I come to the 8:30 service, so I came in, I sat right in the front row. That's completely empty right now. I guess I smell bad or something, but I sat right in the front row. I got this. in my bulletin, I came down, I sat down, I was like, do not open. Put it under my seat. I picked it up from my seat, and I was like, and I opened it, right? And even though I knew it said, do not open, I opened it anyway. That's temptation. It's when you've gotten the exact thing to do. You know what's right, but you did it anyway. Don't feel bad. I did too, and I know way more. We're just going to be the only honest people here today. So for all of those that didn't open it, go ahead and open it now. Go ahead and open it now. Yeah. If you got a $100 bill in there, that one's mine. See, we got this document that Pastor James made. See, the hard part's not knowing the difference, guys. I just broke down the difference between a trial, a test, and a temptation. That's not the hard part. Hard part is knowing which you're going through. Is it from God? Is it not from God? Do you have to persevere through it? Do you have to use wisdom to get through it? Do you have to avoid it? So Pastor James made this trials, tests, and temptations, and this is going to be awesome. So make sure you take that home, you put it on your fridge, you actually read it, do the right thing, tell the truth. Next Sunday when we ask who read it, read it so you can raise your hand and be truthful. See, this is what's cool, is how do we know what we're going through, right? James 1:5, and that should be on page 1043. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God. All you got to do is ask, and God will give you generously all without finding fault. It will be given to you. God knows everything that's going on in your life. He knows every trial that you're facing, every trial that you're going to face. He knows every temptation because he's been tempted. All you have to do is ask, and not just ask anyone. It says it in James, ask God. And this is my favorite part of that verse. It's so easy to skip over. It's right there in the middle. He will not find fault in you for asking. Who's ever been there where you just sit through a whole seminar, whether it be in class or at work, and you're ready to go home, the meeting should be over, and then finally they go, any questions? And you look at the guy who always asks a question, and you're like, I swear to goodness, if you raise your hand right now, don't do it. Just don't. He raised his hand. And then everybody goes, God's saying we don't find fault. If you want to know, ask. God says, I want to tell you. I want to show you. I want to help you. I want to guide you. He's not going to hold it against you. He's not going to make fun of you. He's not going to collectively sigh behind your back. He's simply going to give you the wisdom that you ask for. I remember back to the story where I crashed my car. The car was on the side of the ditch. I was in a ditch, not on the side of a ditch. I was in the ditch. Glass was everywhere. And it was the middle of the night. Like most times if you leave a bar after it closes, it was 2 a.m. I get out of my car. I have to climb out of my car. Blood's just dripping down my hands. I feel the blood coming from my face. I have no cell phone. No idea where my cell phone went. I look back at my car. It's gone. And then I remember in that moment I cried out. And I go, God, what are you doing? Look at my car. I'm in the middle of absolutely nowhere, in a snowstorm, bleeding. God, what are you doing? You see, God says to ask. But you got to be prepared for the answer. So God, I remember it like it was yesterday. He answered and he goes, I didn't do this. You failed the temptation that was put before you. It wasn't a sin for me to go out with my friend. Probably wasn't a sin for me to go to a bar that night. But I kept getting closer to sin when I would take that drink. Got a little bit closer to sin when I put that key in the ignition. And it was definitely a sin when I put that car into drive and I started driving. And now I'm standing in the middle of a back road in the mountains of Pennsylvania, snow covered everywhere. And I go, God, why did you do this to me? And he said, I didn't do it. You did this. This was your will, Stephen. But he said, but I will meet you where you are. I definitely remember hearing it. And he said, you did this. You caused this. This is now your trial. But I will be there with you if you want me to be. And yes, I got arrested that night. Yes, I went to court. Yes, I had a probation officer. And yes, it was my fault. But God can make any situation good. My screw-ups were not bigger than God's blessings. My God redeemed me, and I had to go through a trial, but my God completely redeemed me in that situation, and he will redeem you too, if you're ready to ask. More importantly, are you willing to listen? Wisdom is what is needed. But before that, faith is the factor. Wisdom is what you want. Wisdom will help you through this situation. But faith is the factor, if you're following along in your notes, is what you need. Faith will be the anchor when temptation comes to your door. And you will remember who you're connected to. You're in the middle of the ocean and the tides are turning. That anchor will hold you right in place. And that anchor is faith. Faith in God. Faith is the position for God's promises. If you're out in the middle and waves are crashing, would you rather be in the boat? Or would you rather be hanging on to a life preserver for dear life? Faith will position you in that boat. Faith will grow you in God's promise. Doubt's the enemy of faith. And when we have doubt, what we're saying is, God, we don't trust you. God, I can go through this trial without you. Faith says I'm the anchor. Doubt says I am the instability. Faith says I'm with God. Doubt says, where is God? So the real question today, do you have faith to ask God? Will you face temptation without God? Because I guarantee you will face temptation. God did. Jesus did. Jesus faced temptation that we couldn't believe. So when you face temptation, will you be standing next to God? Will you be talking to God? Will you be asking God what to do? Or will you stand by yourself? Because you can ask God to show you that truth. And really, if you're facing temptation, you can actually take joy in that, because you know that you are now a force to be reckoned with, because the enemy's trying to tempt you, just like he tempted Jesus when Jesus' ministry was taken off. We all need to grow, but can you ask God to show you what the trial is for? You could cry out to God all you want. You get to communicate, you get to ask, and God can tell you, hey, this is my trial for you. I want you to grow because I have something so amazing for you. And maybe you're sitting there and you just need a little bit of refining today. You need to be like that dagger that needs to get sharpened a little bit. You need to remember all of that wisdom, all of that knowledge that God has already given you. You need to remember your past life because it's going to bring you into the future. Can you ask God to discern that test today for you? You know, we need to ask boldly. We need to discern prayerfully. And then we need to act faithfully. So that's ask boldly, discern prayerfully, and act faithfully. So that's talking to God, listening to God, and then doing what God has told you to do. Those 3 simple steps. But it all starts with faith. It all starts with God. Do you have the faith to ask him? Do you even know him? Maybe you're sitting there today, wherever you're hearing this message, and you're saying, that sounds great. I have been through so many trials, and you've never even talked to God before. Today's the day. Today's your chance. You see, God